where I, change this and ask for a vote?
Yes, sir. Sure. if you want to.
We've got Ms. Williams in the crowd, Ms. wanted to just say a few words to us. And, Ron and Rob both said we would have to vote to allow them to go to the workshop. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I got a motion second for further discussion. All in favor, please signify by your right hand saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Williams, if you'll step forward to the podium, please, sir. You got,
I told him don't take too long.
20 seconds.
Well, in your case, we give you 30.
you said 5 seconds.
No, this is something that I may be totally off base about it, but I've never thought about it until last week. If a person has an alcohol license and their premise has been purchased by somebody else and they have to move and you just paid for your license, then I would have to buy a license again. If I had to move 2 weeks after I purchased my license, the way I hear it's read that you can't take them to another location. Is that correct or am I wrong?
It is site specific.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. You know, when you pay $3,500, $4,000, you gotta do it again in 2 weeks. And this may not happen to me at all, but it could happen to somebody else. If it's a circumstance that the person can't control, and if it's in the city limits, I would like for y'all to discuss or at least think about having maybe a transfer fee or something that it wouldn't break the person to have to move.
Well, I think what Mitch is saying is right. I mean, as far as you know, it is site specific and you would have to pay the license. I'm not aware of any state law that makes it site specific.
Don't know, we just have to check.
The state, I asked LaWanda Pick, she's a revenue agent, but I wouldn't care about state. It costs $200. That would be the same as a transfer fee. I don't mind paying a couple of $100, but you know, when you gotta pay $3,500, $4,000 to move,
If, you know, if there's not any prohibition in state law that I'm not aware of any, then I think that, you know, council could, you know, consider
Transfer?
what Mitch is talking about.
Can you research that?
Sure.
All right.
I was just gonna say, let's staff it and, look at our ordinance and see what we need to do to address the issue, and we'll bring that back to the, February
That good?
Yeah,
council
yeah,
meeting.
there's a section there about transfers, and if it's allowable, and it's an easy fix.
Right.
A good deal of our ordinance is modeled after the state though, so.
Right, so that's, we'll just have to look into it from a legal standpoint, and then y'all can decide from the practical standpoint.
That's a good question, though.
Well, and-
It'd make me ill if I just paid $4,000 for alcohol.
well, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you can even consider this, but prorating license, I mean, a lot of people don't know that if you buy your license in September, October, November, they run out, you gotta buy them again the next month.
Yeah.
Again, people, you know, like I bought mine in June. If I'd known that, I wouldn't open up to November.
Well, they are prorated after July 1.
Really?
Yes, sir. You pay
Well, I
half
got
of
mine July and then I had to get them again.
After July 1, you pay half the fee.
Okay, well,
But,
if I'd known that, I'd have waited a couple more weeks.
I got a permit for something, and, it was before the July, so I didn't get a permit.
Well, I know.
But it was after July, you did.
But, you know, like I say, that's a pretty large expenditure, especially if you gotta move, not a choice of your own, and then you gotta pay for everything transferring, you know. And that may not happen. I mean, somebody just bought my building, and I've already talked with him, and he's talks real good. But in fact, I told Larry the reason I was waiting so late to buy the liquor license because I didn't know who was buying the building. Now I know, because I had a meeting with him. And he may be great, I don't know. But I don't want to take a chance. I want my ducks in a row if in case I have to move.
My future daughter-in-law is somewhere in that guy, with that guy that purchased the building.
So it's,
I know she's a sweet girl. I couldn't dig any further than that. I'm like you. But, we'll wait and see on that deal.
well, I think my 20 seconds is up, but I appreciate y'all letting me speak.
Thank you, Mitch, and thank you too for what you did in the city for so many years, the police department.
Oh,
Thank you.
I loved it.
We might let you come back here. All right.
Not yet.
Robert, you told me not to get bifocal. Somebody told me don't get bifocal.
It wasn't me. I need my
I
bifocal.
mean, I have to do that to see Ricky.
thought Mark was
approved,
supposed
then
to
have
do
to do
number
this
two.
to see what we're looking at.
Yes.
First discussion item is the
Crystal told me
presentation of the annual audit. And Ms. Meredith is here, we're proud to see her again this year. Meredith Lipson, Alden, and Jenkins. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was just gonna introduce her, but you already have.
Okay.
Meredith, you wanna come on? She's, y'all met her before, Meredith Lipson from Malden and Jenkins. And we finalized the 2014 audit as of June 30th, so I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Lola.
Thank you so much for having me present the audit this evening. As Lois said, the June 30, 2014 audit was finalized and filed with the state by their December 31st deadline. So they have everything that they need. I think you have two documents that you were given, the gray document, which is actually the audited financial statements, and then the clear bound document is one that really is kind of a document that our firm provides to you all. It's kind of a summary of what we're going to talk about today, and a little bit of additional information regarding recommendations that we have and new GASB standards that are out there. So let's first talk about this gray document, the financial statements. The first 2 or 3 pages after the table of contents are our audit opinion. As always, the financial statements are the responsibility of management and the council, and our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit procedures. And we did issue an unmodified opinion. That's the clean opinion. That's the one you want. So hats off to you guys. No issues as far as the audit opinion goes. The financial statements themselves are set out basically in the same manner that they have been over the past 8 or 9 years. No significant changes. Sometimes the Governmental Accounting Standards Board decides to twist everything around and throws everyone for a loop. What you're looking at in these statements is what you are used to looking at. I know one of the main focuses, or one of the most important funds that everyone wants to talk about is the general fund, because that is the heart and soul of the city's operations. If you take a look on page 20, you can see your general fund is one of the columns, very first column listed there. The general fund had total assets of just over $7 million at June 30, 2014. Total liabilities of just under $1 million, $900,000, and total fund balance or equity of about $6.1 million. The page 22, you can see the actual income statement side of the general fund. Revenues of about $14.4 million, expenditures about $13.5 million. So you had an excess of revenues over your expenditures this year of about $869,000 for your general fund. You did transfer out some monies to other funds, but in the end, your general fund balance increased just over $723,000 for fiscal year 2014. The other funds that are listed on these pages, your special purpose sales tax funds, of course, all the money that flows through those funds is earmarked for capital projects. Some years you'll see a big increase in your fund balance, other years a big decrease, and that's just how the sales tax funds work. Some years you collect more than you spend, some years you spend more than you collect, and eventually you end up spending it all and those funds go away. One thing I think is good to look at is the budget to actual comparison for your general fund, so you can kind of see how you all ended up having such a nice increase in your fund balance. Page 25 and 26 shows your budget to actual variances, your original budget as well as the final budget, and then the variance there. So you can see on page 25 that your revenues actually came in a little less than you anticipated, about $195,000 less. But every department came in under budget as far as the expenditures were concerned, especially public safety and public works. So this is how you all, of course, when you budgeted a balanced budget. But expenditures came in far less than anticipated, and therefore you were able to grow your general fund balance, which is, it's really a great thing, especially, as the economy improves, we're seeing a lot of improvement in the city and county governments that we work with. It was it was a little scary for a while. Everyone was having to dip deep into their fund balance. You know, as the economy is starting to improve somewhat, we're seeing improvement in most of the city and county governments we work with. This is one of the bigger ones that I've seen as far as, you know, considering your size. So you all have done a great job of having your departments hold tight on those, you know, their expenditures. And we're able to increase that fund balance. The next few pages focus on your proprietary funds, basically your enterprise type operations, water, sewer, gas, solid waste, and of course your TIF theater fund. The balance sheet for these is on page 27, income statement page 28. Your water fund and the gas fund, of course, actually generate revenues, operating revenues sufficient to cover the expenses. Solid waste as well. The sewer revenue fund, you did have expenses that exceeded the revenues in that fund. But for the most part, the net position or the equity of these funds, there was no significant or huge decreases or increases. A little bit, you know, a little bit over, a little bit under for all of the funds. The statement of cash flows, which is really important information on pages 29 and 30. If you take a look at that very first section, it says cash flows from operating activities. All of these funds, with the exception of the theater, generate cash flows from their positive cash flows from operations. You always want to see that number be a positive, because that's actually where you're taking in your money from customers and you're actually spending it on services provided, suppliers, and employees. That doesn't take into account any additional capital assets that you purchase or payments on debt. This is strictly your operations, and you always want that number to be positive. You know, every now and then there'll be a reason that it doesn't, you know, you may see it dip a little bit where, you know, the cash actually was used in operations, but you really want to make sure that your operations are positive, that the rates that you all are charging for the operations are covering the costs. And in every case here, they are. So that's a positive there. The remainder of the statements consist of footnotes to the financial statements, a lot of detail behind the numbers on the statements that we've already looked at. There's also some more detailed schedules with regards to some of your other funds, just past the footnotes. And then we also give an audit report on internal control and compliance under government auditing standards, as well as another report on the single audit. You all expended again this year in excess of $500,000 in federal funds. And so we're required to undergo what's known as a single audit, where there's specific compliance testing and internal control testing on grant programs. This year we looked at 2 programs, the Transportation Enhancement Grant as well as a firefighters grant that was from the Department of Homeland Security. So those were both looked at, and we have a report on that on pages 77 and 78. And then finally, we do have our section that addresses any findings that we have on pages 81 and 82. We only had 2 findings, and really, well, the first finding is in regards to the GMA lease pool, which is a very complicated animal as far as accounting for it. And most governments didn't even realize this way back when they signed up to be part of this GMA lease pool. But when you all signed up to be part of that lease pool, and you said, we'll take, it was $4.4 million, you said, okay, we can use that money. That money actually was put into an account in your name. So that has to show up on your books. So when you use that money to buy something, you're using your own money. And when you pay back, when you make payments to pay off what you purchase, you're paying it back to yourself. And what has been happening is, you all have been recording it more like it's a third-party transaction as opposed to a transaction within the city itself. It's an oddball situation in the way I look at it anyway. But we're just recommending that from here on out, and I think Lois and I've talked in detail about it, to make sure that it gets recorded properly in accordance with GAAP. It really didn't change anything as far as your bottom line anywhere. It's just a matter of how it's recorded because of the way that it was set up, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's all that would pertain to. The second one had to do with your new utility software that you have. There's some issues that Lois and her staff are working on regarding some of the reports that are being generated from that system. I know they've been in constant communication with the software company because the reports, the detailed reports, aren't tying or matching up with the general ledger. And they're working to get that fixed. It's not a huge differences, but it is enough that needs to be addressed, and they are in the process of addressing that. And so that's what that second finding is about. Now, both of these I feel like will not be here, in future years. So nothing to lose sleep over. Do you have any questions about the financial statements? I know I went pretty quick through that, and you haven't really had an opportunity to look at them. But I'm happy to address any questions you have now, or if you think of something later on, Lois has my contact information. I'm happy to talk with you about them.
Mike, are you okay with all?
Lois, just speak on those findings. Are we trying to get those corrected?
Yes, as far as the first finding, excuse me, as far as the first finding, it's a manner of a reclassification. We recorded it that way for budgetary purposes, where we could keep up with how much we needed for that GMA debt. And it was just a matter of not getting it reclassified at the end of the year. So we can do that easily, that's no problem. As far as the second one, we are working with Govern to try to get those reports corrected. I think at this point in time, it's a matter of what date the reports are pulled from. And there's several different dates in the Govern system that you can pull from, but if you don't pull from the exact date that the ledger pulls from, then it's going to be out of balance. So we are working on that, and we hope to get that resolved soon. And I'd like to say that the first year.
Go ahead, I'll bring that, we can handle it.
You will take. First year we had 13 findings. Last year we had 6, and this year we had 2. So I'm very proud of that.
Very good.
Okay. And we're still working on those. And
They've come a long, long way. Lois has worked so hard, she and her whole staff, to get things. And you all, for a small city, I know I've told you this before, for a small-sized city, you all have a lot going on. These big utility operations, it's just a lot going on. It seems like every time we talk, or when I come down here, I'm like, you did what? You did. The whole transactions that you guys had with regards to some of the extensions of lines with a couple of the outside parties. I mean, those are major transactions that we don't usually see in a city, of this size, and that's great. But you do have a lot going on, and it's a tremendous amount for the finance department to keep up with, and they're really doing a great job. They really are.
It will be even better next year because at the end of this year, we paid off a pretty big debt.
I would say our balance sheet should very much improve.
Yeah.
And I would like to say in here, it reflects the debt that we paid off in 14. We did have several.
February we paid off.
We had several debt instruments that matured and was completed, and then we also had the refi of the CityNet debt that is reflected in here as well. And the final debt will be in 15 because it was just January the 5th. So that would be reduced. I think there was about a $4 million debt decrease in this audit.
Pretty good.
That's good. Like to see that go there.
And as far as the gas lines that Meredith was talking about,
Right.
we have we have a debt on that, but then we have the farmers that are actually paying that debt, which we have a receivable that we have to amortize, and then, of course, the debt amortization schedule. So that gets a little tricky when the payment is actually based on consumption.
Well, I just got this tonight, and I'll look over, if I have any questions, I'll shoot them to you, and you can just send them to her if, we
Okay.
can't pay them now.
If any of you have any questions, just let us know.
The other clear document that we gave you, this is really just, a lot of this is kind of what we've talked about. There's some graphs and charts in here for the various, major funds where you can kind of see a 5-year history. And we do also include in here, just various things we're required to communicate to you all, about the statements, which I really already talked about. One thing, that did change this year a little bit as far as what's being disclosed in your financial statements. The Governmental County Standards Board has gone and made this major change in pension disclosures. You'll see some different disclosures regarding your pension plan in here, just following the footnotes. Next year, all governments are required to record, not in your funds, but on a government-wide level, in the very first couple of statements you see in here, in the big picture, to record a liability for the difference between your, the net assets of your pension fund and the actuarially calculated liability. So whatever the actuaries calculate as a liability, back out what you've got in assets, that's gonna have to be recorded as debt on the government-wide financial statements. So unfortunately, nobody's real happy about that, but you all aren't the only ones, and there's some of the bigger governments that are really gonna be hurting, because they're quite, underfunded. So just to let you know, that's coming out there. But again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. I'm happy to come back and talk with you one-on-one if you have specific questions.
Mary, we appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate working with you guys.
Coming down to see us, bring us a good report.
You're welcome.
Do we have approval? Do they approve the
We'll look at February council.
paperwork? This is a work session. This is a work session.
Paul's second, Mr. Attorney, and just send him,
Yes.
see where he may have a better run to it.
No, for executive session,
Do we write it out? We put his, put the speakers on.
I'll be right back out here, just for a second, while you're trying to put your.
Running late, got here about.
We're in recess.
She's gonna be okay. Her heart was fine. That part of it was really good. Got a great report on that part. When we got up there, blood pressure was like sharp, and sugar was off the chart. And it was probably the greatest wake-up call for her. she's already contacted doctors and trying to get her squared away. She says you're helping. Well, that's what the doctor told us, is look, you the hospital, you know, she needs your help. Years, but, you know, and I think this time that we're really stressing out, you know, we're doing the things we're never supposed to do. I mean, I already cook where we eat good. I mean, we eat it right, but, she's been up there for a wake-up call. Really, she's, I think she finally got most of, you know, they do that diet, but that diet, kind of last night she had, couldn't get warm, you know, same as the diet, you know, come on.
So was that also include some of that underground pipe work?
She's doing it, man, thank you for asking.
Where it's flooding?
I mean, this, I think, is just one of the ends right here. No, I think it's already, they were real in. That's what it is. And that's Lexus versus you guys. Remember? That means they were talking, you know, real, I mean, I don't know,
I believe what you said.
if you don't go, we got nurses assigned to us, exclusively. And, I mean, not that that's what's about, but that's pretty cool. The doctor came sit down, and that's why I'm in town, report and everything. Professional, I mean, you know, when you walk in, you got to walk out. No. I was late. I was here. I was doing something else.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get started again.
But I don't.
Johnny, can you hear us?
You're supposed to have someone with them.
Just for the record, Johnny's got a couple of teeth pulls, so he ain't feeling this. We wanna get this thing wrapped up as quick as we can. Put him right here. Okay, the next item is discussion of 2014 Community Rating System Recertification. That's the hazard mitigation plan. Scott?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
No.
This is just an update to an existing plan that affects Tifton, Tift County, and some of the smaller communities, Tata and Omega. Give you a little bit of background information. You actually should have the copy of this plan update in your packet. I know Rona had included it. It's fairly. It's PDF? Okay. There's basically the reason for the update is just it's to meet the federal requirement. Periodically, we have to update the hazard mitigation plan for our community. And as you may recall, back in 2000, year 2000, federal legislature passed a rule that required all communities that to have a hazard mitigation plan in place if they wanted to be eligible for federal dollars. So you didn't necessarily have to, but if you did have some manner of disaster and you did not have one in place, you wouldn't be eligible for federal money to help recover from that disaster. So most of the communities, ours included, adopted the hazard mitigation plan. It went into effect, had to be in effect by 2004. And through the process, the goal of it is kind of multifaceted. You obviously want to provide better safety and security for the residents of the county. You want to streamline and coordinate the emergency response efforts between the different departments and divisions within that county and city. And ultimately, you want to try to provide a safer, quicker recovery time from any sort of a disaster. For our update for this year, we've got a couple of things that have been added. There is going to be a new emergency operations center. It's under construction, will house obviously the emergency management personnel, 911, and the IT personnel. Also, there's the Community Emergency Response Team. It's actually developed some standard operating procedures for hazardous mitigation. That was one of the provisions that had to be in place by 2017. Additionally, there was a plan for the relocation of residents affected by a disaster, whether it be a fire, or flood, or such. There was an implementation of an early warning system. All this has occurred during this update. And lastly, we've been certified as a storm-ready community. So this was a coordinated effect. There are a number of people listed in that from throughout Tifton and Tift County. Some of the smaller cities you'll see a list in there of the people that were involved in developing the plan. H&H Resources, they're out of Albany, who was employed to develop the update for us. And there's really, if you go through the plan, besides those updates right there, there actually is some very interesting information. The update includes, it's basically a statistical analysis of the different types of events that have occurred in the community over the years. And as such, it kind of those statistics get shuffled again every time there's an update, because things, over time, they change a little bit. And if you read through the data in here, some of the interesting things that come out of this are, for hurricanes, there's over the last few years we've been blessed. We haven't had very many hurricanes, but it's estimated by the GEMA that if the coast of Georgia was struck with a Cat 4 hurricane, that our area would experience a Cat 2 hurricane, or winds up to 112 miles an hour. So, interesting thing there. Tornadoes, obviously as a big issue here, just recently have had more tornadoes. Since 1952, there's been 5 F2 tornadoes in our community in Tift County. That would be something that exceeded 157 miles an hour. We've also had a number of smaller ones as well. Flood, Tift County is relevant to this. Tift County was actually declared a flood disaster area in 2009 as a result of some of the heavy rainfall that we experienced during that time. Windstorms, I thought this one was pretty interesting. We have a 118% chance of having a severe thunderstorm every year. So, wish that was my lottery chance right there, but no. Extreme heat and cold, this is another one that's counterintuitive to me. I would have suspected for sure extreme heat is listed as any day exceeding 95 degrees, extreme cold any day under 32. Worked in the departments that we do, I would have thought for sure it would be more likely to have days over 95 degrees. It's not the case. If you look at the statistics over the last 15 years, we're far more likely to have more days under 32 than we are over 95. Wildfire, it's estimated that in Tift County we will experience 6 wildfires every year, and the average size of that wildfire will be 18 acres. And lastly, drought. Drought obviously is one that's been of concern, certainly for municipalities and utilities within the last 5 years. Our area, according to GEMA, has a 9.35% chance of experiencing a severe drought every year. So it's just a matter of time. You guys, does the mayor and council, do you have any questions related to the update itself?
I just see the participants, they can update that. I see Jimmy Stone's name's on the Tift County Fire Department.
We will.
Jimmy Stone, I know he's not there.
That's right, we will. Yeah, and I noticed as well that it had some of the titles were
This
incorrect.
takes a long time
Yeah.
to update up. I mean, this was a year
Yeah,
of work.
I think all the update that would be okay.
I'll make a note of that, Mayor. We'll actually add that.
Do you wanna share the good news about getting recertified for CRS?
There is a benefit to each and every citizen in Tifton. With the recertification, the citizens of Tifton will enjoy an 8% reduction, an average 8% reduction in the costs of their flood insurance. So there's a monetary value assigned to this as well. Not only does it make us eligible for the federal dollars, but on a year-to-year basis, if a person has flood insurance in the city, having this certification for our community saves them about 8% on their premium.
How often does FEMA update that program?
required to submit information anytime we,
The firm maps, flood insurance rate maps are, that FEMA you're talking about, does, that's every 10 years.
Every 10 years.
But they haven't been able to keep that schedule.
The last time they updated, I think they put the whole county under it.
Yeah, we didn't have a good experience with that last update.
the DNR map's a little bit different. It shows the flood areas, basically narrow areas along certain canals. So it's very interesting to see the distinction between the two.
Is that what is used for tax assessor's website? I mean, I don't know if you know that.
The firm maps,
Huh? No,
DNR,
yeah.
no, Texas, they use firm maps.
Yeah, they sure
Oh,
do.
they do?
Yeah, the DNR maps
Unfortunately.
are what control our ability to do construction in certain areas
Oh,
and
okay.
also define what sort of material and techniques have to be implemented when we do build something in those areas.
Okay?
Thank you all.
John, you still with us? All right, we got about two more items, and we'll be brief. Number 3 is the discussion of the surface of old fire station building. Larry?
Yes, sir. I wanted to make sure you can hear me. Johnny, can you hear me okay? Okay. The location where City Hall is presently located, once we move out of it, the idea is to sell that property. And in order to sell that property, we have to declare it surplus. So at the February meeting, we'll be bringing whatever documentation we need before y'all with a recommendation to surplus the property so we can put it back on tax records. That's all it's about.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the price line on it?
We have to sell it, we'll get it appraised, yes. But we'll send it up, we'll request proposals. But we have to, typically what we do is we'll use, the tax, appraisal as fair market value. But if it's not closed, we might have to have another look at it.
Right. Now, do you have to bid, how, so you said bid that out?
There'll be sale bids.
All right.
Or sale proposals, one or the other.
Can we have a, can we put a reserve on that?
Absolutely.
I was just wondering, I'm just trying to make this like eBay. You know?
We're not gonna give it
So
away.
if we get something we don't want, we don't have to pay it.
That's right. Item number 4 is the resolution providing for alcoholic beverage license for the Shell Food Mart located 2302 Highway 41 North. Ronald?
Yes, so they're requesting an amended alcoholic beverage
Can you speak
license.
up just a little bit so Johnny can hear you?
They're requesting an amended alcohol license to remove the sale of wine package retail. They're going to just be selling beer. And they are also changing their corporate name to Reyes Incorporated. We've done the normal background check on Syed Bakari. He revealed no violations. The staff's recommending approval of the license and resolution.
Rona, that's the one above the interstate, right?
Yes, sir, across from the conference center.
And Johnny, we got one more item here, it's the board reports. Ronald's gonna do that, then we've got a quick executive session thing, and then we'll be through. Okay, Ms. Ronald, you gonna do the board report?
Yeah, very quickly, I listed all of the full year, as I try to do every January, list you everything that's gonna take place during the year and when that'll happen. Under the January workshop, we did not reappoint Greg Anderson to the Tiff County Airport Authority. We need to do that. And we still have a vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I just wanted to bring that to you all's attention.
I thought that's who we just.
We had 2 vacancies there.
Oh, I
We
see.
filled Dale
Okay.
Sumner's.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just put in a plug for Greg Hanson. He is, I sit on that board as well, and he's been a super chairperson. And I hope we can reappoint him.
If it's your pleasure, I'll be happy to put it on the agenda for February the 2nd.
Okay.
And that's it.